The SS Edmund Fitzgerald was a Great Lakes freighter made to carry taconite, which is a form of iron ore from the mines of Minnesota to ironworks in Detroit, Michigan, Toledo, Ohio, and other ports on the Great Lakes. The Fitz broke records, then broke her own records again. The Fitz was the largest Great Lakes freighter of her time and the pride of the American side. The Edmund Fitzgerald got its name from the chairman of Northwestern Mutual, Edmund Fitzgerald. It was built by Great Lakes Engineering Works on River Roads, Michigan, and was launched on June 7, 1957. She was in service for 17 years, if my math is correct, and went by many names, including Big Fitz, Toledo Express, and Titanic of the Great Lakes. She would unfortunately live up to that last name on November 10, 1975. On November 9, 1975, Big Fitz set out on her final voyage from Superior, Wisconsin, carrying 26,000 tons of taconite ore pellets, with Captain Ernest M. McSorley in command. Big Fitz had 29 crew members, all of them well seasoned. Only one crew member didn't go on the ship for its final run due to a medical problem, which saved him from the unfortunate fate of the Fitz and all of its crew. The Fitz was accompanied by the Arthur M. Anderson, another Great Lakes ore carrier piloted by Captain Jesse B. Cooper. On that day, the National Weather Service had predicted that a storm would pass Lake Superior by 7 a.m., November 10th. This wasn't a problem at first, as both the Fitz and the Anderson had seen their fair share of storms, but this was not like any storm they'd ever encountered. At 7 p.m. on November 9th, the National Weather Service altered its forecast, issuing gale warnings for all of Lake Superior. The Anderson and the Fitz altered their course northward, seeking shelter along the Ontario shore. At 1 a.m. on November 10th, they encountered a winter storm. The Fitz reported winds of 52 knots, 96 kilometers an hour or 60 miles an hour, and waves 10 feet high. The Fitz lowered its speed because of the rough conditions, but unbeknownst to them, this is one of the factors that led to the wreck. At 2 a.m. November 10th, the National Weather Service updated its warnings again from gale to storm, predicting winds of 35 to 50 knots, 65 to 93 kilometers an hour, or 40 to 58 miles an hour. The Fitz had been following the Anderson up until 3 a.m. when she pulled ahead of the Anderson, taking the lead. They continued moving until 2:45 p.m. when it began to snow, reducing visibility and causing the Anderson to lose sight of the Fitz, which is about 16 miles ahead at the time, or 26 kilometers. At 3:30 p.m., Captain McSorley radioed the Anderson to report that the Fitz was taking on water, having lost 2 vent covers and a railing. The vessel had also developed a list, which is how much the ship tilts, possibly from the taconite side shifting heavily to one side. The Fitz had six bilge pumps running to discharge the water they were taking on. In a broadcast shortly after then, the U.S. Coast Guard warned all freighter that the Soo locks had been closed and any vessels should find safe anchorage. The Soo locks are a set of parallel locks that enable ships to travel between Superior and the lower Great Lakes, and with them closed, the Anderson and the Fitzgerald changed course towards Whitefish Bay. At 4:10 p.m., the Fitz reported the loss of both of its radars, meaning the Fitz was now completely blind. The Anderson, though, still had its radars, and said that they would be the Fitzgerald's eyes until they got to Whitefish Bay. Around 5:30 p.m., Captain McSorley radioed the Anderson to report a bad list, worse than before. Captain McSorley said that it's one of the worst seas he'd ever been in. At 7:10 p.m., the Anderson asked the Fitz how they were doing, and Captain McSorley replied with, "We are holding our own." The Anderson said they'd talk to the Fitz again later, but they never would. 10 minutes later, the Fitzgerald went dark and out of sight of the Anderson. There was no distress call, no radio message, just silence. The 730-foot-long giant had just vanished into thin air. Captain Cooper of the Anderson called the U.S. Coast Guard at 7:39 p.m. on Channel 16, the radio distress frequency, but had to switch over to Channel 12 due to communication system problems. It took multiple ships, helicopters, and planes before Navy aircraft detecting magnetic anomalies finally picked up the metal hull of the Edmund Fitzgerald at 2 pieces in the muddy depths of Lake Superior. The bodies of the 29 crew members were never found. 2 lifeboats were recovered, heavily damaged and completely empty, and the life rafts were recovered soon after that, holding multiple supplies completely untouched. The searchers say that if the Fitz would have made Whitefish Bay if she'd put only 17 miles behind her. The reason why the Fitz sank has been debated, and many people have argued over what caused it, but the most likely theory is based off a statement from Captain Cooper. Captain Cooper states that he saw the Fitzgerald get dangerously close to 6 Fathoms Shoal. While this wouldn't usually be a problem, the Edmund Fitzgerald was a massive ship and being weighed down by 26,000 tons of iron ore. Upon closer inspection, an extension of 6 Fathoms Shoal was discovered right in the Fitzgerald's route. It's said that the impact damaged the Fitz, and a large wave was the last hit it needed to split in half and sink to the bottom of Lake Superior. Every year at the Mariners Church in Detroit, they ring their bell 29 times for every man lost on the Edmund Fitzgerald.